Well, I thought you meant sustainability because fly fishermen catch fuck all.
Welcome everybody to the Deep Drop. Thank you very much for your time and joining us. This is a fishing podcast that asks difficult questions and has a go at answering them in some way, shape or form. I'm Luke McCredden and with me as always, Adam Ring. Ads, I don't reckon we should muck around tonight. I reckon we should just dive straight on in.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Will there ever be fly-only rivers in Australia?
Well, firstly, Adam, this is actually an interesting question, but I think we probably should break down fly-only rivers, fly-only lakes, because some people won't be familiar with the concept. But basically, and I think predominantly in the US, New Zealand, and probably in Europe, they're sort of weird about their fly fishing in Europe.
Correct.
But I think essentially it's exactly as it sounds. There's some rivers and lakes around the world that is only fly fishing allowed. So no bait fishing, no lure fishing, nothing, just fly fishing. And I guess the main reasons for that seem to be environmental, and you know, the fish sustainability, I think, is the main reasons behind, as far as I'm concerned, and I can sort of see. So I had a bit of a look and a bit of a deep dive. There actually are fly-only lakes in Tassie.
I thought when we were pre-planning this and I had a look at the questions, I actually did think Tassie straight away. And two thoughts on Tassie. A, it's not part of Australia, is it?
No, it's international.
So you know, it falls into the same category as the US and everywhere else like that. But, and do they have fly-only rivers, or is it just lakes?
I think it's only lakes at the moment. So
yeah, okay.
I think, you know, and there's a lot of reasons for it. Like I said, I think predominantly around the world, it's the environmental reasons, of course, and, you know, fish sustainability. And when I say that, I think it's all about the release of fish. So it's all about, there's a lot of talk around the reason for fly-only is because fish release better if they're caught on fly, as opposed to...
Well, I thought you meant sustainability because fly fishermen catch fuck all.
Well,
I was wrong?
Mate, you may be very, very accurate there. I'm not sure. I don't mind that. I think there's a lot to do with, you know, catching them on fly. It's all about the suck and spit action of a trout or a salmon. And I know that sounds kind of dirty, but it's not. It's how they're feeding off. You know, they suck a fly in, and quite often, if it doesn't feel right, they'll spit it straight back out. But with a bait, they will quickly identify if it's a worm or something like that it is in fact that, and just swallow it straight away. And hence, you get gut hooked, you get hooks going down the throat, and all sorts of issues. I think I'm kind of on the right path with that as one of the reasons there are fly-only waters around the world. You've already given us some insight as to why you think it is, and I think it's not bad.
I've got no idea why there is fly-only waterways. Now, and in case for the listeners out there that haven't picked this up yet, I've fly fished once in my life. The fly was caught on the tree behind me more than it was in front. Yeah. And I've never touched a fly rod again ever since. Well, it's just one of those things that it's never grabbed me. It really hasn't.
It's and I am absolutely guilty of that. I have been on one fly fishing trip, and very quickly into the trip, put the fly rod down and grabbed a spin rod. So, but it is an art. It is a fantastic method. I love it. There is certainly some YouTube channels that I watch that are my favourite fishing channels. That is fly fishing. I think it's a really beautiful way to fish, and obviously, as I said, some of those channels are international and they're fly only, so it makes sense. But I think there's also a bit of environmental reason around it too, and I think a lot of it's to do with bait fishermen, you know, tend to get snagged more, and there'll be dirty sinkers and hooks and line and leader sort of
that makes sense.
throughout waterways. So that does make sense. Not to say that you don't snap a fly tippet off if you at some point of your life. I'm sure they do, although they'll never admit it.
No.
But so I think that's sort of the why, and I think that's a bit of the what. But the question remains, will there be fly-only rivers in Australia? Well, mate, I think it's fair to say, Adam, you and I are in absolutely no position to make a call on it
Nope.
from a legal standpoint. But I don't mind it. And here's one reason that I don't mind the idea of it happening in, nominating a bunch of rivers around sort of New South Wales and Victoria. And doesn't have to be a heap, can just be a handful. It's somewhere the fly fishermen can go and just be left alone.
Yep. I love the way you said that.
And don't stand, even not getting in anyone else's way and vice versa.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they'd be the first to say, yeah, that's fine. Let's give us our own waterways.
Yeah. But then I think every bait fisherman would claim they want their own waterway, and I think every lure fisherman would want their own waterway, and then every greenie would want their own waterway where none of us are allowed to do anything on it.
Which they already do, yeah.
Yeah, it'll just be a bit of a snowball effect. But on a serious note, I've got nothing against fly fishers.
Sounds like you do, Adam.
Or fly fishing. No, I don't.
No.
I'm just not very good at it, and I don't understand it at all. But I do honestly think, I don't think there will ever be fly-only rivers that aren't already established, if there is some, because I don't know if there is any more out there apart from the ones we spoke about earlier in the segment. I think everything's come too far as far as I just don't see how it could be policed or managed. I don't know if it's worth even the fight of doing it.
Yep. Yeah.
Fly fishermen will probably disagree, and that's not to say they haven't got some of their own little hidey holes around the place where they prefer to fly fish over others, but I just don't think in any official capacity there will be one. But I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, awesome. I'm all for it. I just can't see how it would work.
No, I think I'm kind of with you, but also on the other side of the fence in that if there's strong reasoning for it, and good reasoning for it, whether it be environmental or whatever, then I think there could be. But there'd have to be a strong case for it. There'd have to be a strong reason why it would happen. And I think just off the top of my head, some of the lakes in Tassie might be that really shallow weed bed lakes anyway, which are probably you'd only want to fly fish on them anyway. There's not really anything else you can do with them. So
they're kind of fly fishing only by default.
By
really.
default, yeah, probably. So I don't know, but I'm sort of leaning towards I think it could, but there'd have to be a good argument for why it needs to happen.
So do you think it would need to be just hypothetically speaking, a new man-made river somewhere that connects an existing river in a couple of spots, or do you just pick a bit of river somewhere and say fly fishing only?
Yeah, I think it'd probably picked off, and you'd have to be an established river, maybe that then gets stocked, and maybe a lake that then gets stocked purely for the fly guys. But it'd have to be something that's not heavily fished by bait and lure fishers already, because it'd be a bit of an uproar. It'd probably have to be something that's 95% predominantly only fly fished anyway. And we've all fished trout rivers that have sections where, as a lure, like you and I basically only spin, with hard body lures or spinners or whatever. And we've all been through those sections where you go, geez, we can't really fish this. This is if you were a fly fisherman, you could fish it and probably be productive, and they do. But it might be a bit of a rapid or a small pools that you sort of have to be really, really particular with. That it almost cancels us out. So I'm thinking it'd be that sort of river or fishery that would make that happen. I don't think it. Yeah, I think it'd be a bit of a debate, but I think it could. But I'd harp on it. It'd have to be good reasons for.
Yeah, I can't make up any of those reasons in my head or come up with a scenario in which I'd look at it now and say find out tomorrow that a certain stretch of river or something was going to be fly fishing only and go, yeah, that's a good idea. Like I can't see it. And it's no offense. And it probably came out worse than what I intended it to. But it's not because I've got anything against fly fishing. I just think it's not necessarily a fight that would be worth taking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, look, once again, and I think it's happened before already in this podcast, we've had a bit of a crack at fly anglers. So what I'd like to say to that is, if you are a fly fisher,
get a spin rod.
No, not get a spin rod. That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say get in touch and tell us why it should happen or it shouldn't. Maybe they'd be against it as well. I'm not sure, but
I'm definitely open, especially on this topic. I'm open to hear all suggestions because I am just not the right person to be commenting on it because I just don't get into the fly fishing thing.
No, I think you and I both need to get some feedback on this on Instagram. The Deep Drop Instagram page is the best way to do it. Jump on, tell us what you think, tell us what we're saying that's completely wrong because we need to know before we tackle these answers. Anyway, all right, let's move on. What do we got next?
Is it Westernport or Westernport Bay?
Oh, Luke, the age-old question.
This old chestnut.
I've got a pretty clear answer and stance on this.
Yep.
And if you call it Westernport Bay, you will offend me.
Yeah.
So, I tried so hard to find something, anything, that would support my answer.
Yeah.
About it not being a bay. But I think, like, technically speaking, it is.
Mm.
But I'm not going to have it.
No, that's fair. Look, when I knew this question was coming up, I'm not going to lie, I dove into some research.
So did I.
Because I thought, no, I don't want it to be an opinion piece. I want to have a bit of fact to back me up.
I've gone strictly opinion because I couldn't find a fact to support my opinion.
Well, I did, but the funny thing is, and I actually thought this at the time, is that I thought I'm going online, I'm getting facts. But then you go, it's just online. It's not necessarily a fact. But I'm confident with my Britannica research online, Adam, that in fact it is Westernport. Now, the other interesting part of that is that I think, over the years, I'm certainly guilty of just writing Westernport in one word. It's very much two words.
It's 100%. It's two words.
Yeah. So there's and makes sense. But when I think about all the times I've written it, I reckon, in articles probably, I've even publications written it as one word.
Well, even have a look at some of the maps and books and bits and pieces you can buy. It's one word.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
correct.
Wrong. It's wrong.
Bill Klassen, if you're listening, update all your AFN maps because it's two words.
Spell check, Bill. Come on.
But it was interesting when I did dive in a little bit to some research. A lot of the things that I read were about it being Westernport, but then it also had, affectionately known or also known as Westernport Bay. So obviously,
yes, and that's what annoyed me.
Yes,
they gave in, Luke. Yeah. They gave in.
They didn't stand their ground and say no. It's Westernport.
So, Luke, bit of a fun fact that I found in my researching travels. Now, I just want to preface this by saying it could be made up.
Yeah.
Because there were no dates given, but I did find something that said there has been a time in Victoria's history where that entire coastline between Wilson's Prom and Port Phillip Bay was actually referred to as Westernport.
The whole coast?
The whole coast.
Oh, wow.
Between Wilson's Prom and Port Phillip Bay. So that means nothing. I just found it was interesting.
I love it.
But yeah,
and because we're going
but
back
that whole area, but that whole area was never known as Westernport Bay.
No, exactly. That's very, very relevant. But I suppose because I think it goes back to old mate who discovered that area. That was as far west as they got, wasn't it? So it was just Westernport, and it was obviously the port. And I don't want to be flipping this argument into the other bay, but I think Port Phillip
clearly
Bay.
a bay.
But I've read things about that it's a port and it's just Port Phillip, and in fact it's made up of a dozen or 15 or 16 different bays.
Yes. Now that is correct, and it's still Port Phillip Bay.
Am I opening a can of worms that we weren't ready for? I just
massively, and it's funny because this was something that was brought up on Talking Fishing, Luke, on Channel 31, and we actually had a disgruntled viewer write into us way too many times because we would continually refer to it as Port Phillip Bay.
Yeah, right. Oh, and they were saying.
No, it's not, because it is made up of the 7 bays or whatever
it is
claim it to be. But that's not the question, so let's ignore that.
Okay.
We might tackle that on a future episode.
But it does raise the question that Victoria's 2 largest waterways, so to speak, there is still confusion over what they're called.
No, seriously. And
200 years down the track, we haven't got it right.
That's right, because the true definition of a bay is a broad inlet of water where the land curves inwards. So it creates it's almost like a pool or a bay.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, I think Westernport is a bay.
Yeah. Is it?
But I'll be offended.
Is it? Can I throw another spanner in the works and say that at some point I've heard both referred to as estuaries?
Yeah, no, they're idiots.
Okay. But, I mean, there's kind of, if you really wanted to sort of deep dive into that, it kind of also makes a bit of sense too when you break it down. But let's not, because we're getting away from...
No, well, but I've also heard as well why Westernport isn't a bay is because it has 2 entrances.
Ah, okay.
But I couldn't find any information on to say that's a reason why it wouldn't be a bay, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Does it have 2 entrances, or is it 1 entrance with an island in the middle?
Oh, now you're getting philosophical on me. My brain hurts.
There you go. I think we'll get opinions on this one, which is awesome because that's what we want. And again, I throw to Instagram, find the post about this particular question. But I'll also just, what do people want to call it? Let us know what you've always called it all your life, and you want to stick by it and you're not budging. That's cool. Let us know, because the Port Phillip Bay, Westernport Bay question. Let's hear it. I'm not having Westernport Bay though. It doesn't feel right.
I'm so glad we're on the same page, because I feel as though if we had differing opinions on this, it may have affected our friendship.
Well, this would be the last episode I'd ever record with you, to be honest. All right, so we're both strong on it's Westernport. Bang. Let's move on.
Is land-based fishing even good?
Wow. This is a very elitist question, isn't it? This is coming from someone who owns a nice shiny boat, someone who wouldn't even dare to step foot on a pier or a rock platform or a bank of a river. Is land-based fishing even good? No boat, no fish. That sort of theory, that sort of mentality. False. No boat, no fish. False. I'm going to stand up for the land-based anglers around the world, around Victoria, around Australia, around the world. Absolutely, it's good. But I think, Adam, what we need to do now is give because I don't know where you're sitting on this one, but is probably to give some arguments as to why I think it's good, why we think it's good, or why you might think it's no good, Ads. Where are you at with this?
No, I think it's good. Now, listen, I probably don't do enough of it as I probably should, but I think solely it's based on the grass is always greener on the other side. Yeah. If you're land-based, the whole time you think, I'm not catching anything because I can't go and find the fish. The fish have to find me.
Yeah. Or you're sitting on the bank or on a pier or wherever you are, and you're looking at boats driving past going, oh, man, if only.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah exactly. But listen, land-based, it is good. And Luke, we've been lucky enough to meet and know and talk to heaps of guys that have just about got the land-based thing like clocked. That are just like insanely good land-based fishers.
Well, I mean, to the point where if you suggested they should get a boat or something, they'd be like, well, "Nah, why? Don't need to."
I don't need to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, and you do. You speak to a lot of those people, and I think in terms of even the fishing too, like it depends on what you're into. There's some instances where a boat's not even relevant. Like if you're a diehard trout angler, well, sure, you can hit a lake somewhere around the place or whatever. But I think the best, and I might be speaking out of tongue here, but some of the best trout fishing that's available is all on foot.
Well, I think we've covered this in a previous episode, and we said that, trout caught from the boat in a lake doesn't count anywhere near as much as the ones that are caught.
That's right. But actually, it's a good segue, because one of the other things we've spoken to, and might have been that similar episode, was about the fact that there are certain species that are worth more land-based. Like, and I think snapper was one. If you catch a really nice snapper, let's call it 3 to 5 kilo bracket, which is a really nice snapper. If you get one of them land-based, well, I think that outshines one that's boated any day of the week.
Yeah, well, you kind of need to work insanely hard on a different level to be a successful land-based angler. But you don't have to be, if that makes sense. Like my first ever fish was caught off a pier.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think where land-based fishing changed for a lot of people and got insanely difficult is through the social media revolution. Because now you can't, if the garfish are going insanely well down at Mornington Pier, you can't go down there and find a spot to fish. Like it's just crazy because of the information that's so easy to find these days. But for those that want to get out and explore, find a rock ledge somewhere, or take a little goat track down to a bit of river that barely gets touched, or the back of an end of an estuary that even the boats don't even get up into. There is some really good fishing, but it's like everything. The more time you want to put in, the more obsessive you want to get about it, then the better the results.
You touched on a point there which I think is really important, and certainly for me, because I think about fishing as a kid, piers and jetties was where it was at. I call that kind of the grassroots fishing. When you're a young fella or a young boy or girl, and you're hitting the piers, the jetties, the wherever, it's all land-based, and you're a tackle rat, or a pier rat, jetty rat, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a lot learnt from that, and you develop as an angler. Maybe you don't think of it at the time because all you think is, I wish I had this boat or whatever, but you're actually learning so much. And I think about these days with the access of, and the availability of so many boats and vessels out there, that some kids are probably fortunate or unfortunate, depending which way you look at it, that their first couple of years of experience of fishing is out of a boat, out of this luxurious, beautiful boat, which is great, don't get me wrong, but you forget about that grassroots fishing, as I call it.
Yeah, that's right. And it can be like everything, because I guess it's easy when you're sitting on the bank or sitting on a pier and you see all the boats and maybe the fishing's not going that well. It's easy to think that I have to be in a boat. Like I'm not going to catch anything. Let me tell you, as someone who has fished out of a boat, I've caught just as much of nothing out of a boat than I have on a pier or a riverbank somewhere as well. So it's got its own challenges. Same with catching fish out of a boat or a kayak or whatever you do these days. But I think land-based fishing is definitely not to be ignored.
Yeah, there's always that.
You can still get good fish.
There's always that funny thing too when you and I'll use estuary fishing all up and down the east coast of Australia, particularly. When you're in a boat, you're quite often really honed in and targeting the banks and casting your lures as hard up against the banks as possible. Yet when you're on the bank, you're doing everything to cast your lure or your bait out as far from the bank as possible. And it's that crazy thing when you think, well, yeah, if you actually look at the two combined, you think, well, I'm fishing where you are and you're fishing where I'm standing. So there's something here to it. So, yeah. The other question, I suppose, to finish off this segment is, and I was thinking about this today, and I know there are a couple, but in the grand scheme of things, most fish, and I guess it's a statement, but I'll turn it into a question. Are there many fish that you can't catch land-based? Now I'm not talking they're easy. I'm not talking difficulty. I'm just saying in general, because we've seen over the years from way back in the 80s the rock platforms up in the sort of the mid-north coast or the mid-coast of New South Wales for marlin and big tuna.
Yep.
And I suppose the development of fishing tackle and gear, all of a sudden, there's not many species that you can't actually target land-based.
Yeah, that's right. And apart from deep dropping,
Yes.
that it's probably one of the few things. Well, it's the only thing I can think of right now.
Yeah, and certainly,
you know what I mean?
certainly some of the pelagics that you'd sort of associate with maybe out wide on the Great Barrier Reef and that sort of thing. But even that, when you talk to guys that are from up north Queensland, there's quite a few accessible rock ledges that all of a sudden coral trout, GTs, all these sorts of fish are absolutely targetable, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right. And you need to nut out those times that maybe they push in close, or it might be a specific time of year. But that's no different to targeting them in a boat. You know what I mean? You're still working out the best times of the year or the best tides or the best time of day to target these fish.
Yeah.
It's just about understanding the water and understanding the species you're trying to catch.
All right. Well, Adam, is land-based fishing even good?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm saying it is too. And I'm saying,
yes.
Yeah. And don't overthink it. Just take it for what it is, and it's good. Ads, that's us. That's us for now. Hopefully we've put a bit of a twist in our answers on a few tricky questions there. I'm comfortable with all my answers. How do you feel?
Yeah, no, I feel pretty good. I hope I haven't offended too many fly fishermen.
You have.
Sorry, not sorry.
All right, well, get in touch. Instagram's the place to hit us up. The Deep Drop is what we're called. All our questions are posted in there, and we encourage people to get in touch and get involved, ads, and interact and tell us their thoughts on all those questions. We're simply just having our opinion. We're not stating facts here, not except for Westernport. That's fact.
That's fact. But tell us we're wrong, please, on everything. Tell us we're wrong. But tell us why we're wrong, because,
yeah,
we need the conversation going.
And a big shout out there to Dave Standing for our questions today, Adam. Obviously, Dave's voice may be recognised by the fishing public out there. Obviously, hosts Wind Against Tide podcast. It's a good one. I've been involved in that a couple of times. A lot of fun. So thank you, Dave, for reading the questions tonight. Much appreciated, mate. But also subscribe. If you like what you're listening to, subscribe on your favourite podcast players. Tell all your friends about it. Get them involved, and obviously hit us up on Instagram, The Deep Drop. I'm Luke McCredden, and Adam Ring is here as always. Thank you very much for your time. Adsy, let's round this one out.
Hello, my name is Dave Standing. I have been asked by Luke McCredden to ask a couple of questions. I want to make it very clear that I'm doing this of my own free will and certainly have not been threatened by Luke in any way at all. Just wanted to make that clear. That is all. Thank you.